Hi guys, today we have a really good test that we are going to do today. We have the Hatsan 135 and 30 caliber, and we have the Hatsan 125 in 25 caliber. When the Hatsan 135 came out onto the market, it was basically advertised as the most powerful spring or brake barrel air gun that has ever been made, really. Well, today we're going to actually test that theory, and might be a little too late, but you know what? We'll see. I'm really interested in seeing what's going on here, between these two. And I want this to be kind of a definitive video in this test. The biggest difference between the two rifles is the barrels and the calibers. The system, or the piston and the gas ram, they're both identical. There's no difference in that aspect between the two rifles. They both use quattro triggers, and they both, use the same system there. The biggest difference, like I said, is 30 caliber, 25 caliber. The other biggest difference is this is the QE version, which they only make the 30 caliber in the QE version. And it uses a portion of its barrel as a suppressor. The 125, which came out first, and a lot more before the 135, this is the standard version. Later on they came out with the QE version. Now, this is a standard version which does not use a portion of its barrel as a suppressor. So that's the two biggest differences. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to the part where we actually measure these barrels and we figure that part out, and then I'm going to show you the pellets that we used in the testing and how I tested these two air rifles to come to a conclusion on which one is definitively the most powerful one between the two. I've already taken the baffles out of the QE, and I'd put a rod down here to see where the barrel starts, and I'd put a tape on the outside to gauge where the barrel ends. Now the Hatsan 125, the barrel also has, it stops here, and then this is just plastic from here on this way. So I also put a rod, a wooden rod down in to where it, touched the barrel, and then I measured that over here and put a piece of tape. So now we can get an actual accurate reading of what their actual barrel length is. So I'm going to start with the 135. So it starts from here this way up to the end of the breech here. So that's 10.5 inch barrel, and this is a 17.5 inch barrel. So there's a 7-inch difference there between these two barrels. And that's a pretty good size difference there, that can definitely affect velocity, and that it'll definitely affect, the testing one way or the other, and we'll see how this works out. Okay, so we're going to weigh these different pellets that I have in front of me. So I have three different types. This is the 30 caliber. It says 44.75 grains, and I have a 25 caliber. It says 26 grains. So these two are the same, Predator Polymags. We have here the Yinjin 25 caliber, which says 43.2 grains. Now my scale says grain in the corner there. Let's get it flattened out again. So it's going to measure or weigh these in grains. We'll start with the 30 caliber first. Let's see how these do. That's 46 grains there. That's 46 grains. And that's 46 grains. So those three are 46 grains. A little heavier, let's say about a grain and a quarter heavier, which is really not a super big deal, but let's see what the 25 calibers weigh out. 25 grain, we'll measure that again. 26. That's 26. 26. So these three are 26 grains. So there's a 20 grain difference between the 30 cal and the 25 caliber. And now let's weigh the Yunjin. 42 grain. We'll measure it one more time. 42 grains. Okay, so that's about a grain off. 42 grains. Now this pellet here I shaved down with a drill bit. I don't know if you can see there, let me give it a little bit more light. Shaved it down with a drill bit in the skirt and a little bit up front, and then I put the tip back on just to give it basically the same properties as the rest of the pellets. And that's 42 grains. So I shaved it down to weigh the same as the Yunjin. Now, you know, the two basically have the basic shape, pointed to some degree. That's not really going to affect your velocity coming out of the muzzle. It'll affect it probably downrange, maybe 50 yards down, 20 yards down, who knows, but coming out of the muzzle, which is what we'll be measuring the velocity at, that's not going to affect it. So, you know, we can tell here we both, you know, we have both of them in the same weight. They just, you know, obviously you can tell the 25 caliber looks a little bit smaller in diameter, but the weight is definitely there. So it'll be interesting to see how they shoot out of, you know, these rifles. Okay, so here we are, finally with the conclusion of the testing. The Hatsan 135 QE with a 10.5 inch barrel, shooting Predator polymags, 46 grain, average velocity of 3 shots is 509 feet per second, which translates to 26.45 foot-pounds of energy. The Hatsan 125 with a 17.5 inch barrel, shooting Predator polymag, 26 grain, average of 3 shots, producing a velocity of 711 feet per second, which translates to 29.17 pounds of foot-pounds of energy. So, if you take these two rifles shooting their standard pellets that are designed for their rifles, the Hatsan 125, beat the 135. Now, it's only by a few, foot-pounds of energy. 2.5 foot-pounds of energy, round about there, maybe a little bit more, but not a huge difference, but just a little bit more, energy at the muzzle from the Hatsan 125. Now here's the test we've really been waiting for. Both of them shooting the same pellet weight. So the 125 shooting the Yunjin 25 caliber 42 grain pellet shoots at a velocity of 524 feet per second. The Hatsan 135 shooting a Predator polymag, which I had, used a drill bit to take some weight out of and get it down to 42 grains, shoots that pellet at 543 feet per second. So the engine with the 125, 524 feet per second, producing a an energy of 25.60 foot-pounds, and the 135 shooting the Predator Polymag at 42 grains at 543 feet per second, producing 27.49 foot-pounds. So now you might say, yes, now it's still AIRGUN. The 135 has, is more powerful. But if you think about it, really think about it, there's only a difference of 20 feet per second between the two rifles, shooting the same pellet. And that 2 foot-pounds is really nothing. So, in conclusion, the 125 produces just as much, if not maybe a little bit more energy than the 135, just kind of depending. If it's using the 25 caliber pellet, produces more energy. It uses the same pellet weight as the 135, almost identical in energy, in my opinion. The biggest difference between the two that squares these up is the barrels. If the 135 had a standard barrel where it had more rifling, it would have produced more energy, in my opinion. I just don't know by how much. And that would have been an interesting test to do. But with the way these rifles are, in my opinion, the 125 is just as good as the 135. But, that's a choice that you guys have to make. Is the 135 30 caliber a cool rifle? Absolutely. This thing, will smack targets out, 50 yards and, all day and every day. Same thing with the 125. Pretty much does it really well out to 50 yards. And both have a lot of energy. Now, what I will tell you is that the Hatsan 125 and 25 caliber has a much better selection than the 135 and 30 caliber. And that's the most important thing for me, is to be able to pick the right pellet for the rifle and have a wide variety of pellets that I can pick from depending on what I'm hunting. Because I could use a heavier pellet and take, definitely bigger game with a lot more energy. Or I could use a lighter pellet for, lighter game, birds and stuff like that, where I don't need that tremendous amount of energy. I could pick a lighter pellet to shoot a little bit more flatter. But at the same time, like I said, I have a wide selection of pellets that can help me make this rifle a lot more accurate. Whereas a 30 cal doesn't have such a wide selection of pellets, and that's something that you're really going to have to think about. But, in my opinion, the most powerful break barrel rifle was already made, quite a while before this one came out. So anyway, which one took the cake, in my opinion? Which one's the one that, for me, it's the 125. That's the one that, it's hands down for me, probably the best break barrel rifle, and the most powerful one. So, anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this information helped you. Like I always say, get a Magnum Air Springer rifle and go out in the woods, put up a target, and shoot it full of holes.